And I'll start off with open. And I want to just say the judges for open were Ron Baker, Judd, and Bruce Seufer. But this is the open contest, and these are the non-winning.
All right.
Yep.
The store, you've been making sure it closed when we leave, right?
Scores are in the upper left corner. I hope everyone can see those.
Oh, I see that.
Are you getting out?
It shows this screen each time the score changes. So we're going from the 18s to the 19s. And these are the 20s. Ones.
No, my camera's on.
Oh, okay.
Minimize. I wasn't sure. Are these little thumbnails showing up on the left-hand side, covering part of the picture?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they were. I'll make it as small as I can. Okay, we can go now to the working images. Honorable mentions. It's hard to read a little bit with the title, but it's called Daniel's Piece and by Eric Wright.
It's nice. Really cool.
And now first places.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. That was nice. Thank you.
Wow, a lot of them.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
6 first places. Okay. Go on to nature next. Okay. And these were the non-winning images. It took a 22 in order to get a ribbon.
Oh, good.
Okay, and we'll go on to the ribbon winners. I didn't mention the judges in this competition, Paul Bruce, Josh, and Bob Hawkins. The honorable mentions.
I wondered if we could slow them down a little bit.
Okay, I'll do that.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
look at these pictures.
Oh, nice.
Up to third place now.
Hmm.
First place.
Nice.
Okay. Next, we have the creative category, leading lines. And again, we'll do the non-winning images. Okay. And in this one, you also had to have a 21 in order to get a ribbon. And the honorable mentions first. First place, next.
Marty's cleaning the house tonight.
Okay,
Nicely done.
now we'll show the award of merits from last month. What I mean by the title is I combined the three categories, three contests into one to make it easier to project them here. Okay,
I'm going to review some of these, and let's see, we don't need to see that. Here we go. I just wanted to mention, can you see this parrot?
Yes.
Okay. You might have noticed this said disqualified, and I just wanted to let people know why. And what that means, one of the judges thought it did not fit the nature category. And that is because there's something man-made that's very obvious in the picture. Man-made things can be in the picture, but they need to be very unobtrusive. It's really up to the judge to decide what that means. But this one's quite obvious. So just so you know, I don't know if the maker's watching, but that's why it was disqualified. Here's one I thought was terrific. The bird is in such sharp focus. There's action as it captures that little minnow. Maybe the bright spots in the background distracted a little bit, but my eyes keep going to the eye of that bird actually. And there's good depth of field from the front of the bird to the back. So I like that a lot. I was surprised that didn't win a ribbon. So whoever made that should definitely try again next year.
I would have moved it to the, cropped it a little more to my left. I don't know. The way the bird is looking, he's a little centered, I thought.
Okay. This is a good composition. Hopefully you can see what I see, and that is it's just not tack sharp. And when those butterflies are that close, they need to be really sharp. And then that's probably the only thing that let this one fall down. So just watch that. Look closely at full screen when you before you submit these. Nice shot, well lit, well composed, just not quite sharp. And the best way to sharpen these kinds of images is probably with manual focus. A lot of cameras these days, when you start to move the focus ring in manual mode, it will zoom in X number of times, maybe up to 10 times, and that really helps you bring it into focus. And then, of course, being macro, you're going to want to make sure you've got the depth of field you want, but at least you can make sure that it's in focus that way. Same thing here, beautiful shot, wonderful colors, well exposed, but that head is just a little fuzzy. Maybe a faster shutter speed is all this needed. Oh, this was beautiful. Just enough of the background for me to show, rather than a totally black background, but not distracting at all. The whole thing was in focus from front to back, I thought. And so I like that a lot. Was it somebody mentioned something there? Well,
I noticed that purple on the lower left is distracting. If that were desaturated, that might help a lot.
okay. Yeah, I didn't notice that hardly at all until you said it. My eyes go right to the yellow pistils in that, or stamens, whatever those are. I thought that was good. Also beautiful, I thought. That bee looks totally clear. Both of them do. And most of all of the center part of this image is very sharp. It's possible there's a lack of a center of interest, or maybe the judges weren't quite sure what that was, or it could be just a matter of impact, which we've often said is the king of all, the three criteria. So beautiful shot though.
Of an edge merger there, Paul.
I couldn't hear this. Is that Josh?
Yeah, a minor edge merger at the bottom. Maybe could have photoshopped out those two guys.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Those two little stamens at the bottom that go off the picture. Wouldn't hurt to get rid of those.
There's in that flower, there's a bee inside there. I didn't know what that was at first. After I'm looking at it now and I study it, I realize that's another bee in there. That's sort of conflicting with the bee that's hovering.
Yeah, my eye keeps going back and forth to them, although I did figure that was a bee, given the sort of stripes. The body looks similar to the body of the one you can see, but yeah. Now, I've chose this one to talk about because they used a fast shutter speed to stop the wings, which is great, and the bird's in focus. But there's a strong chromatic aberration around the edges of the wings. And that means there are colors there that are not real. And that's usually a factor of the lens combined with the kind of light and the direction of the light. But if you can see on the edge of the wings, especially the bottom wings on the back edge, it's red lines and blue on the top
Yeah.
wings. So to me, that was distracting. And then actually, there's a real simple tool in Lightroom to get rid of that does really well. And it's called chromatic aberration. You can slide that slider and those things will just disappear.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's look at some open ones. I thought this was really, really interesting. And what I like about it is actually the texture and the desaturation. But this kind of tells a story, and storytelling is hard to get across with a high score in the club. So it works well for an exhibit or something. But I really like the way the maker texturized it and desaturated it. They also vignetted a little bit. So my eyes are drawn right to the gardener and the lavender. I think that's pretty neat.
Great composition, I thought.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. This too I liked. Lots of contrast. It was tone mapped. I don't know if it was HDR to begin with, but at least it looks like it. But I have no problem with that. It might have been busy for the judges because there's so much contrast in the clouds and in the building, in the bricks. And you might have tried to change the perspective to straighten the walls on the building on the right.
Yeah, it was a panorama multi-shot, and it was an infrared capture.
Is it HDR, three or more exposures?
I don't think so, because it was all happening so fast, trying to catch the bike rider in the
Yeah.
sun.
What did you use to, manipulate it?
We used Topaz to, denoise, and then I put it into Silver Effects Pro to convert it to black and white.
I think that's pretty cool.
I would like to say something, if I may. It's got a wonderful surrealistic look to it, and that's what really attracted me to this. I mean, you have two buildings, and they just are very different, and I think Bruce did a great job.
Thank you. I actually have two versions of this, and I was debating which one to put in, the color version or the black and white version. And I chose the
This
black
is
and white.
Yeah, I think this works.
Thanks.
I think the bicycle rider is a good addition. It helps a lot.
Yeah,
I'd like to say there's so much I really love about this image. The only thing that I'm distracted by are the bright tones in the background.
Yep, right above the lamppost and to the right of the building, a little distracting. But I do find my eyes keep going to the two buildings. They're very, very cool.
Right.
Thank you. That was just after sunup, I think.
Here's a great concept. It looks like it's probably 3 generations of hands, and well lit. They're all evenly lit, each of the hands, but it has the appearance of being done with a flash. It's the highlights are bright, although not burned out by any means, but just everything is kind of bright, not soft, and the fabric they're laying on would be much better if it was even darker to fade into the background. I would suggest bringing down the highlights some, darkening the blacks, which would darken what they're resting on. And then maybe changing the warmth of the temperature, what they call warmth in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, to take a bit of the harshness out of it, and it would look much improved. But that's a neat idea.
That would have been good with a little bit of vignette on it too.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Sometimes what I do with images like that are darken the overall image and then use the radial in Lightroom to fill in some light, and you can also color that light.
Yeah. I don't know that this won a ribbon, but I thought it should have. I liked it. I love still lifes. I think it's very difficult to position items in a still life so that they look good. Now, for some reason, it does look like the background's been added, and from a different image, there's an edge around the pear on the right, and maybe along the horizon, not the horizon, but the edge of the table they're on in the back. But I like the lighting, the tones. This is a risk in judging in a competition like ours, because a still life needs to have a lot of impact to carry. But I think the maker should be proud of this one.
I was a judge on that, and I really liked it. But I could not get away from the edge of the pear on the right.
Yeah.
One thing that I've used when I'm creating a composition like that, or composing, in Lightroom, there's a remove matte white or black, and that might have helped with that edge.
Yeah, yeah. It really looks like that was from a different picture. And
well, it's not smooth either.
Maybe the two alone would have been fine, but the eye usually does like things in odd numbers rather than even, and maybe that's what they were thinking.
There's another element of composition here in still life perhaps as well, and that is if you look at the two pairs on the left, they just touch each other at the base, and that creates tension. And so one of the elements would be to have the objects overlap by maybe a third or a quarter, and to avoid those elements there at the bottom where they barely touch, and then also at the top, those two on the left where they barely overlap. That's a tiny feature, but that might be a compositional element.
Yeah, it's good.
Point, Bob.
I thought this was beautiful. It would have won if I was judging. I thought it was great. My eyes, I can't take them off the main flower in the foreground. The background's sufficiently out of focus with what looks like just a depth of field, technique, and the lighting, I think, is beautiful.
There's some, on that sunflower, there's some issues around the edge that could easily be fixed. In the lower left, there's yellow. The lower right, there's yellow. In the upper right, there's yellow. I would hit those with the healing brush, would clean those, take those away. I think that would help it a lot. Yeah,
that certainly wouldn't hurt at all. Look at we've heard a couple times tonight already. Look at the edges. Watch that closely.
Good point.
Speaking of edges, this one on the left causes a lot of tension, but I think the bigger problem is the focus. It's a beautiful picture and well lit and exposed, but the entire image looks a little soft. So zoom in, manual focus, whatever you need to make sure that's awfully sharp, especially for macro images. But it looks like there's a light inside of it, down inside. It's very neat. I like this too, but I like photojournalism a lot. Some people don't. Judges some judges do not. You should enter what you like, that's fine, but don't be discouraged if it sometimes doesn't win. This couldn't be cropped in too much, top and bottom, but you know, it also kind of tells a story. They both look like they're pleased with being near each other. And I like the black and white. I thought that was pretty neat.
I had an issue with the rail in the foreground. It was very distracting, I thought.
Yeah, that could have easily been made darker and therefore, you know, not catch the judge's eye. That wouldn't hurt.
That would have helped a lot.
Yeah. Another one, I picked several here just because I like them. I'm not necessarily had much I could say to improve it. My guess is, for one thing, I like it because I like to model, and I like to model old rusty things like this. So I could use this picture as an example on how to, you know, weather some of my models. But it comes down to probably impact. Again, when you're going up against some of the other things winners you saw in an open category, it's very hard. But this would be another good one image in the middle of a story about, you know, aging, whatever. So I thought it was kind of neat. Here's one that unfortunately I believe looked too obvious. Edges around the entire bull and rider don't look quite realistic, but the lighting is probably what is the biggest giveaway. The background is dark and dusty, but the rider and the bull are really bright. The bull also is not in focus. It's due to motion, but that probably would have been okay had the whole subject not looked kind of placed in there. So it's not easy. Maybe Susan in her program in a few minutes will help tell us how to.
One thing I when I'm mixing, again, different pictures, you can do a color filter if you did it in Photoshop overlay and adjust the opacity to where it kind of blends in.
Yes, that's a great way to blend composites, is to put at the end on the top layer, put an overall or a colored layer over all of the subsequent layers or layers below that gives them all the same tone, and that really helps sort of meld your composite.
In this case, I would have taken a color sample of that background layer and chosen, you know, one of the colors in the dust and used that for the overlay over the bull rider and bull.
Exactly. Sample something from the image and use that as the color, and then it really helps blend everything.
Nice idea.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I've got.